Merong post ngayon sa social media na pinagkakaguluhan ng mga accounting students. Kasi ang haba nung problem, ang hirap, tapos 2 points lang. Sa'yo na yung puntos na yan. Nandito kami ngayon para patulan, sagutan, kunin ang inaayawan ninyong 2 points. Challenge accepted kumbaga by Sir Ruin. Okay? Actually, itong problem na to hindi pa namin nasasagutan in advance. Mga 2 to 3 times ko pa lamang din siyang nababasa. So sabay talaga natin siyang gagawin. Sana tama din ang ating maging sagot. Okay? So isa pa, nag-reprint kami, nag-retype ng problem para mabasa. Okay? Dito sa ating ginagawang challenge. Yan, napakahaba po talaga. 3 pages. Okay? So challenge accepted talaga ito ng malala. Yan. But still, even though ito ay katuwaan lamang, gagawin natin yung ating video ng as much as academic as possible. Okay? Kasi comprehensive naman yung tanong. Tsaka kung ikaw ay meron ng kaalaman talaga na medyo malalim sa intermediate accounting, maganda na rin ito para makapag-review. Okay? O para makita na possible naman talagang sagutan yung mga komplikadong problem. And by the way, hinati-hati namin yung problem per date. Okay, nagkaroon po kami ng mga species, okay, para ma-manage ng mas maayos kung paano sasagutan kung sakaling komplikado yung problem. Isa pa, okay, wala ring hiningi na requirement itong tanong sa social media. Wala rin pong naging tanong dito. Okay? Yung hinahanap. Therefore, ang ginawa na lang namin, we'll just assume that the required is to prepare journal entries to record the transactions para makuha mo yung 2 points na yon. Ayan na. Sige. So, we will start now. Ayan. Sabay-sabay po natin itong gawin. Ayan. So, I will read the first paragraph first. On January 1, 20A0, STBBSA Incorporated commenced operation with initial investments consisting of 5 million cash, a petty cash fund of 50,000, cash in foreign bank of $17,500, and exchange rate of 51 peso is to $1. There are 7,500 units of inventory costing 1,125,000 with a fair value of 1,400,000 and a machinery with an original cost of 3,200,000 and a fair value of 2,900,000. Yung first sentence ng problem talks about initial investment of the owner. Okay? Sa accounting, kapag ka nagjo-journal ka, kapag ka may initial transaction, ang lagi mong iisipin is yung how do we recognize and how do we value. So, recognition and measurement. Parang ganon. Okay? So, yun. So, gawin na lang natin para maintindihan. So, sabi dito noong January 1, okay, 20A0, nagkaroon ng investment yung company. Okay? At ano-ano yun? Ito na yung sinasabi natin na kapag ka initial recognition, dapat una mong isipin ay ano ba yung mga account titles na i-debit mo, yung recognition na nga. So, sabi first, we have here cash. So, we debit the cash. And then, we have the petty cash fund. So, we debit another kind of cash, which is petty cash fund. But this time, it is a fund. And then, nag-invest din siya ng cash, another cash, but this time in foreign bank. So, pwede po na bagong account title talaga yon. Pwede namang ihalo mo na rin sa cash. Pero this time, ihihiwalay talaga natin kasi that is cash in foreign bank. Okay? Ano pa ang in-invest niya? Then, nag-invest pa siya ng inventory. So, you also debit inventory. Nag-invest pa siya ng machinery. So, you also debit machinery. Yan yung sinasabi natin. Okay? How do you present, how do you recognize the account title? Pero yung challenge sa accounting is yung valuation, yung measurement. Dapat alam natin yung rule kada specific na account title. Okay? Gawin na lang din natin para mas maunawaan. Yung cash, how do we measure initially? At face. So ang sabi dito, the face amount of the cash is 5 million. That's why we debit cash for 5 million. How about the petty cash fund? Petty cash fund is accounted using 2 different method. The impress fund system and then the fluctuating fund system. Pag walang sinabi yung problem, alamang it is on a impress fund. Ano ba yung impress fund? Ibig sabihin nun kung magkano talaga yung fund na in-establish mo, yun yung magiging measurement nung fund na yun. In this case, petty cash fund. At hindi mo yun gagalawin unless end of the accounting period, unless there is an increase or decrease of the fund, something like that. So, hindi yung ginagalaw kasi nga impress eh. Okay. So, sabi dito, 50,000. Kung ano yung establishment, yun yung i-debit mo. Next one is cash in foreign bank. Ngayon, hindi ka pwedeng mag-debit ng $17,500 because your company is in peso. Okay? Paano kung sakaling ganito? Una, alamin muna natin. Okay? Ano ba itong nangyayari ng January 1? Is it transaction or translation? Okay? Ano pagkakaiba ng transaction or translation? Translation happens whenever there is a financial statements wherein presented in a foreign currency and will be converted into peso. Okay? Ito ba ay financial statements? Hindi. So, hindi siya translation, but rather ito ay transaction. Okay? Ang transaction, ibig sabihin, yung nangyayari in a specific date. At yung sakali na ito ay foreign exchange transaction, meron niyang conversion. Ano ang gagamitin mo? Okay? Basically, kapag ka daw asset, we will use the current rate. Okay, in this case, ang exchange rate ay 51 peso is to $1. So yun yung gagamitin mo na conversion. Ang ibig kong sabihin, gawin na lang po natin, hindi mo pwedeng i-record yung $17,500 kasi hindi yan yung functional currency, hindi yan yung presentation currency nung company mo. Ang presentation currency niya ay peso. Okay, that's why 17,500 will be multiplied to 51 peso. So therefore, we debit cash in foreign currency amounting to 802,500. Okay, and then we have here inventory. Inventory has a cost of 1,125,000 and a fair value of 1.4 million. How do we recognize inventory initially? Ang sabi, it is at cost. And what does cost means? Cost means the purchase price or the fair value on the date of acquisition. Okay, so therefore, ignore na yan itong 1,125,000 kasi mas lamang itong fair value. Okay, what does cost means? Again, it is the purchase price or the fair value on the date of acquisition or in this case, investment. And there's an addition, directly attributable cost. Meron bang directly attributable cost pertaining to the inventory? Wala. So, dun lamang tayo sa fair value niya, which is 1,400,000. Kahit binanggit na initially measured at cost, the cost is really the fair value initially. Same goes through with the machinery. The machine also has original cost of 3,200,000. Siguro, dun sa mga original na may-ari ng machine. Pero yung kanyang fair value ngayon ay 2.9 million. Okay? How do we measure initially kapag sakaling PPE? Okay? So we will measure them also at cost. And what does it mean by cost pagdating sa PPE? Tatlo yung component nun. Di ba? Okay? So first is the purchase price. The second one is the directly attributable cost. And the third one is the dismantling cost. Okay, pero sa problem na to, okay, parang wala din naman directly attributable cost and dismantling cost. So, anong gagamitin natin? We will just use the cost. Okay, but then, what is cost initially? Okay, cost initially is not the original cost from the previous owner, but rather the fair value. Okay, so sana maliwanag po yun. So, anong napansin natin? Okay, really, on initial recognition, the best valuation is the fair value. Huwag kang magpapadala dun sa original cost kahit binabanggit nila na we initially measured it at cost because the cost is the purchase price. The purchase price is usually the fair value. Okay? Nasagutan na natin yung percentage sa debit. Pero ano yung credit? Ito yung problema doon sa problem. Unang error nung gumawa ng tanong okay? Hindi sinabi kung ano ang ibinigay o natanggap nung nag-invest. So therefore, we will assume, malamang, since this is sabi dito, STBBSA Incorporated, so malamang ito corporation. Okay, therefore, ang ibinigay niya ay share. So we are going to credit share capital. But then, yung share capital can be classified into three, di ba? I mean, may tatlong kategory, di ba? Pwede siyang, par value shares, no par but with stated value shares, and then no par, no stated value share. Okay, we try to discuss again the theories behind them. Okay, what is a par value shares? Ibig sabihin, alam na pagbibigay ng shares kung magkano ang isa at nakasulat yun sa mismong share certificate. Okay? Ano naman yung no par? Di malamang walang value dun sa share certificate. But with stated value. Ano naman yung stated value? Wala man sa share certificate, pero malalaman mo daw kung magkano yung shares, okay, yung value ng bawat isang shares, hindi sa share certificate, but then in other documents of the corporation, such as article of incorporation or some other documents na ginawa nila. Okay? Ay ano naman yung no par, no stated value shares? Okay, edi malamang yun yung walang par value per share, walang stated price per share na makikita sa kahit saang dokumento, as in talagang walang kahit ano. Okay, kaya nga no par, no stated value. Generally, or most of the corporation naman talaga ay may par value. Okay? Kasi syempre naman, we are living in a advanced world, di ba? Di ba? May technology na tayo. So siguro naman, may mga legal na rin tayo. Siguro naman, hindi mo malilimutan kung magkano yung value ng shares na ibinebenta mo. Pero sa problem na ito, nakakalimutan. So we will assume, for the sake of discussion, we will assume that it is a no par, no stated value share. Kasi nga kapag ka with par or with stated value, we measure the share capital at par or at stated value. And the excess will go to premium, share premium. Pero sa case na to, wala lahat nun. Walang binigay. Nakakalimutan ng gumawa ng problem, ano yung credit. So we assume no par, no stated value. So the credit is the share capital for the total amount. Share capital kasi malamang corporation nga ito. Okay? So we add 5 million plus 50,000 plus 892,500 plus 1,400,000 plus 2,900,000. Okay? So we credit share capital for 10,242,500. Okay? Let's move on with the second sentence. The founders also contributed a parcel of land in Laguna appraised at 6.5 million. Okay? So i-debit na rin natin kasi pwede namang hiwa-hiwalay. So nag-invest din sila ng land. Okay? Land na pag-usapan na, PPE is measured at cost. So yan na yung cost. Yan na yung fair value niya. Kasi ang sabi dito ay appraise. Ang appraise meaning merong professional na tawag ay appraiser. Sila nagsasabi kung magkano yung value ng land. Okay? Yung fair value niya. So tama na din ito. And then dahil nga ito yung no par value share, we just simply share credit, share capital amounting to 6,500,000. Okay? Let's move on. Sabi pa dito, upon which, dun daw sa lupa na yon, okay, the company immediately began constructing an office building incurring a direct labor of 5,500,000 and direct materials of 1,175,000. The building was completed 8 months later, okay, has a 55-year useful life and is depreciated using the straight line method. The machinery can produce, okay, sorry, ito isa machine naman ito, ano. So punta po tayo, doon naman sa building. Okay? You are constructing office building. So therefore, wag mo munang i-debit yung building. But rather, you are going to debit this account title, construction, okay, in progress or CIP. Yan ay representation na talagang meron kang tinatapos. Okay? On January 1. Kasi immediately after. And you are, this time, okay, anong i-credit natin? Okay, incurring a direct labor of 5 million and direct materials of 1,175,000. Okay? So, we will assume still na lahat ng yan ay galing pa rin dun sa may-ari. So, we are going to credit share capital. Lahat yan galing sa may-ari. Okay? So, magkano? 5,500,000 and 1,175,000. Again, ang PPE is on construction, kaya therefore, hindi natin, PPE ang binubuo. So, hindi natin i-debit yung labor or materials, but rather, diretso tayo sa asset account. Okay, supposedly, building dapat yan. Pero dahil hindi pa tapos, gagawin natin is construction in progress. Bakit construction in progress ang ginagamit? Kasi pagka ang dinebit mo ay building, baka nung January 1 pa lang, malito ka at mag-depreciate ka na kaagad. Ang simula ng depreciation is the moment that it is available for use. Ang sabi dun sa problem, that is 8 months later. Kaya therefore, much better na ang gamitin na yung account title na construction in progress. Okay? Baka dito meron ng advance ang alam sa accounting at ang sinasasabihin nila, sir, nabago na po ba? Di ba po ba nabago na yung accounting for construction? Tama naman na construction cost na ang ginagamit, pero yun ay sa point of view kung sakaling ikaw ay isang construction business. Okay, yung po may alam sa advance accounting, yung revenue from contract with customers. Gagamitin mo lang yun, yung account title na yun, kung sakaling ikaw ay isang contractor. Ikaw yung nagne-negosyo ng construction. Pero kung sakaling internally generated yung construction mo at hindi naman ikaw contractor, kundi talagang gusto mo lang magkaroon ng building, pwede mong gamitin itong construction in progress pa rin para sa akin, para walang maihiwalay siya na hindi pa siya building. Okay? But rather, ito ay in progress pa lang. Okay, so I move on. Ano ba ang sabi dun sa problem? Natapos siya after 8 months. So what is after 8 months? By the way, ang gagawin natin, we will do the journal entry on the same paragraph. Okay, kung kaya na. Ayan, so hindi na natin susunod-sunod din, let's say February, March, basta we answer as as we read the problem. So that is after 8 months. After 8 months is September 1. Okay? Nung natapos siya at wala nang ibang sinabi na amount na dinagdag sa construction currently as we read, we are just going to debit office building. Okay? And then we are going to credit, okay, the construction in progress. Construction in progress account para maipakita na hindi na siya in progress but rather siya ay tapos na at siya ay office building na. 6,675,000. So I believe that will be our answer to this one. Mamaya na yung depreciation. Siguro naman di natin makakalimutan lahat ng gagawin natin at the end of the period. Okay, moreover, ang sabi sa problem, the machinery can produce 120,000 units annually. Okay? So wala lang yan, nagkikwento lang siya na yan yung capacity, okay? Ng machine natin. While inventory is measured using weighted moving average method. So ano ang binabanggit dito? Narito yung method ng inventory. Okay? So this is significant kapag measurement subsequently. Ayan. At dahil binanggit na ito yung moving average, dapat alam mo that they are using perpetual method of inventory. Ano nga ulit yung perpetual? They are monitoring inventory every day. So in short, meron silang stock card. At dahil dyan, kapag ka-inventory yung topic, mas maganda simula pa lang gumawa na tayo ng stock card. So this is the stock card for inventory. Ayan, inventory, stock card. Yung monitoring natin ng solution. So ang format natin dyan, so first, we have here a purchase, okay, or manufacture. Okay. And then we have here the sales. And then the balance. Meron tatlo siyang side. Okay, and then syempre we have the date nga pala. Ayan. So dito, we have there the units, yung format ng stock card, the unit cost, and then the amount. Okay? Ganon din sa sales. We have the units, the unit cost, and then the amount. And then ganon din sa balance. We have here the units, the unit cost, and then the amount. Okay, gagawin natin yan kasi simula pa lang nag-invest siya ng inventory. So ilagay po natin dito yung date which is January 1. How many units of inventory ang kanilang ibinigay? Sabi dito 37,500 at a total cost of 1,125,000. So therefore, how much is the unit cost per inventory? So 1,125,000 divided by 37,500. So we will get 30 pesos. At siya rin malamang yung magiging initial balance natin. Gagawin mo na kaagad yan kasi nga moving average, dapat lagi kang nagmo-monitor. Okay? Ayan na. Let's move on to the next paragraph. On March 1, 2020 AO, the company acquired vehicle for 992,000 to be depreciated using double declining balance method. Di ba kanina straight line? This time double declining balance method kasi there are different method of depreciating the equipment. Okay? And purchase an additional 99,500 units of inventory for 1,425,000. Okay? So what will be our entry on March 1? Mamaya natin balikan yung yung stock card na yon. Dito muna tayo sa March 1. Ang sabi, they acquire a vehicle. So we are going to debit vehicle. Okay? Vehicle. Mali ang spelling. Ayan. Okay? So for 992,000. We will assume this time, hindi na kasi ito yung initial investment. Therefore, maaaring cash na ang kanyang pinambili. Pag walang sinabi, we just credit the cash. Okay? Amounting to 992,000. Ayan. Meron ding nalimutan dito sa problem na to, wala siyang binanggit kung ano yung kanyang useful life. Baka naman mamaya, subukan natin tingnan. And purchase inventory. Ayan. So therefore, dahil nga ito perpetual method, pwedeng gamitin yung account title na inventory. So we debit account title inventory and wala ring sinabi. Okay? So we will just assume kapag inventory naman ay accounts payable. Okay, ganun kasi walang binanggit eh. Okay? So accounts payable. So 1,425,000. Okay. Ganun yung assumption sa accounting kapag walang sinabi. Kapag inventory, generally ay payable. Pero kapag ibang asset, cash. Okay, something like that. Ayan. So, tapos, dahil dun, okay, perpetual tayo, imo-monitor natin to. At ang sabi nung March 1, bumili ulit ng 99,500 units at 1,425,000. Okay, magkano ngayon yung kanyang unit cost? Atin na rin ipakita para kumpleto yung stock card divided by 99,500. So we will get 14.32. Okay, and then pagdating naman dito sa balance, dahil average tayo, 37,500 the total units plus 99,500 the newly acquired units, we will get 137,000. And then the amount, 1,125,000 plus 1,425,000. So we will get 2,550,000. Okay, and then it will be divided to 137,000. So therefore it will become 18.61. Okay? We will do it as it is Okay? As is yung problem natin. Okay, natapos na yung ating first page, 2 pages na lang. Okay? Next. On March 31, 2000, it sold 60,000 units of inventory in exchange for a 3-year 10% note with a face value of 5,570,000 with an effective 14% effective rate and incurred selling and administrative expenses of 1.75 peso per unit on the same date. Okay? So, dun muna tayo nagbenta. Okay? So, therefore, what will be our entry for the sale? Ayan, kuha tayo ng bagong papel. Ayan, so, we are going to debit, March 31. We are going to debit, sabi, notes receivable. Okay? We are going to debit notes receivable. Okay? At a face amount of 5,570,000. Notes receivable account is measured at face. Okay? And then anong credit natin? We are going to credit sales. Ayan. Kasi nagbenta tayo ng ating paninda. Okay? So magkano? Magkano natin ibebenta? Are we going to record 5,570,000 also? The answer is no. Because may binanggit dito that it is effective rate. May effective rate na 14%. So meaning, iba talaga kung magkano yung kanyang fair value. Okay? Kasi ito naman ay face value lang. Okay? Dapat ang masusunod talaga fair value. At kung wala yung fair value, you will use the present value, the most correct amount using the effective rate. Eh paano yun? Okay? So kung naalala nyo, okay, kung sakaling magko-convert or magko-compute tayo ng market price at meron ngang effective rate, ang gagawin natin, we will determine the cash flow. At ang cash flow sa note ay may dalawang composition. Cash flow for principal, dito na rin yung solution. Okay, cash flow for principal and cash flow for interest. Okay? How much is the principal? The principal is the face amount of 5,570,000. How much is the interest? The interest is 10% of this amount, 5,570,000 times 10%. So that is 557,000. Okay? And then we will multiply it by the PV factor using the 4% effective rate. Okay? Ilang taon yung ating note? Sabi 3 years. Kung alam nyo sa calculator yung mano-mano, ang ibig sabihin, yung 1, kasi PV of 1 for 3 periods, di ba? 1 divided by 1.14, at gagawin mo siya ng 3 beses. Again, 1 divided by 1.14, 1 time, divided by 1.14, second time, and then divided by 1.14 the third time. So that would be our principal PV factor of 1. PV of 1 at 14% for 3 periods. 0.6749 or this time 50. I-round natin for 4 decimal places. Okay? At ganun din ang ating gagawin sa interest. We will also use 14%. 1 divided by 1.14 for 3 times. But this time we will add all of the factor. So therefore, pwede natin gamitin yung technique na memory plus. So therefore, memory plus divided by 1.14 memory plus, then divided by 1.14 memory plus. Napansin natin, 3 times natin siyang ginawa kasi nga 3 years or 3 periods. And then, we will do the memory recall. Memory recall. So therefore, this will be the factor 2.3216. Okay? And then we try to solve. At yan na nga yung lalabas na tinatawag na market price. The market price will be the sales. Okay? We solve 500 Okay, clear muna natin yung memory. 5,570,000 the principal times 0.6750. So we will get 3,759,750. And then the interest of 557,000, the 10% of that, okay, times 2.3216. So we will get 1,293,131. I-round na lang natin, okay na yan. And then we add 3,759,750 to get this amount, 5,052,881. Okay? Yan yung i-credit mo sa sales, yung market price. Okay? And then, meron ka pang additional credit, unearned. Okay? Unearned interest income. Bakit ka merong unearned interest income? Eh kasi nga, syempre, di ba? Iba ang effective rate kaysa sa nominal rate. Ayan, that's why may unearned. Ano po yung unearned na yon? That is the difference between the face and the market price. So therefore, i-minus lang natin yung 5,570,000. Okay? The difference is 517,119. The unearned interest income. Okay? That is the entry to record the sale. Pero syempre, dahil nga tayo perpetual method, there is a subsequent entry on the same date. Ito nga pala computation, lagyan natin ng box. Okay? So, same date, another entry, you are going to debit cost of goods sold. Okay? And you are going to credit inventory. Ay, magkano? Ay, di ba nga may stock card ka na? At ang sabi sa stock card mo, ayan, ito po tayo, okay? So, ang sabi, tayo ay nagbenta ng 60,000 units. So, therefore, ilalagay natin dito ng March 31, 60,000 units ang ibinenta mo. Ang unit cost ay 18.61. Okay? So, 60,000 times 18.61, we will get 1,116,600. Okay? So, that will be our entry. Debit cost of goods sold. Okay? 1,116,600 and credit inventory for the same amount. And then after that, i-record din natin dito sa stock card yung natirang balance. Okay? So dating 2,550,000, minus nga natin yung ibinenta, so natitirang amount ay 1,433,400. And then naman sa units naman, dating 137,000, binenta yung 60,000. So therefore, we will get the 77,000. Okay, the unit cost, kahit ipakita natin, yan ay same pa rin ang lalabas dyan. Okay? Pero still, pakita nga natin, 1,433,400. Okay, ulit, 1,433,400 divided by 77, 1,433,400 divided by 77,000. So we will get the same amount, 18.61 po yan. Nag-round na lang siguro, pero 61 na lang gamitin natin. Ay, pinapakita lang ulit na kapag moving average, nababago lang yung unit cost whenever there is a purchase or another products that is manufactured. But whenever you sell, okay, or transfer to another department, okay, hindi nababago yung unit cost. Kasi nga, doon din naman nanggaling yun. Okay, so that ends the entry for the acquisition. For the sale. For the sale. Ayan. Ano pa ang sabi? At meron daw selling and admin expenses. Okay? Selling and admin expenses. So therefore, simple lang ang entry dyan. Hindi naman yung capitalizable, but rather, because that is selling and admin, they are expenses. So debit, selling and admin expenses. Okay? And we are going to credit cash. Yan. 1.75 per unit. Okay? So malamang ang base nito ay kung ilan ang nabenta mo times 60,000. So that is 105,000. Okay? Let's move on. Ayan, ano pa ang nangyari dito sa paragraph na to? Okay? And on the same date, the machinery produced 1,650 units using 34,000 of materials and 23,500 of labor. Okay, nagkaroon daw ng production. Okay? So, hindi din sinabi kung magkakaiba ang kanyang inventory dun sa problem. So, we will assume, okay, they are just producing or selling or purchasing, purchase and manufacture, same inventory. So, isa lang inventory natin. So, isasama po natin dito na nung March 31, on the same date, there is a manufacture of 1,650 units na ang total materials 34,000 and labor is 23,500. So total amount is 57,500 with a unit cost of 1,650. Ayan, 34.85. Okay, dalawang decimal na lang ating ginagamit sa pagsusulat. Next, dito tayo sa dulo. So dating 77,000, naging na siyang 1,650. So that's nadagdagan ng 1,650, that's why it became 78,650. And sa total amount, 1,433,400 plus 57,500. So we will get 1,490,900. And to determine the unit cost, syempre we divide. So its unit total units 78,650. So we will get 18.96 na lang. Ayan. May entry ba yan? Meron din syempre. Kasi yung manufacture. So therefore we debit inventory. Okay? Wala na naman sinabi. So therefore diretso na tayo. Accounts payable ulit yan kasi related sa inventory. Ayan. So anyways, magkano yung total amount? 57,500. Okay. Sige. Ano pa ang pwedeng maging entry related dito sa paragraph na to? Okay? Diretso na din natin na i-amortize itong unearned interest income. Okay? Ang ibig kong sabihin, magkakaroon kasi ng entry later on para sa mga interest. Okay? So, hindi, mamaya na lang. Pagdating ng December 31 siguro, nagbago na po ang isip natin. Mamaya na lang, December 31, lahat ang tungkol sa interest. Sana maalala natin mamaya. Okay, let's move on. For May 1, ano ang sabi dito? On May 1, the company sold 3,600 goods on account for 998,000. 30% of which was immediately factored at 2% discount. Una, dun muna tayo sa pagbebenta. May 1. So, ang debit natin malamang ay on account, sabi dito. So, debit accounts receivable. And then credit sales amounting to 998,000. Kasi sinabi na kung magkano ibinenta. Okay, pero alam naman natin, whenever there is a sale, okay, there is a cost of sale. So, debit, cost of goods sold. Kasi nga, we are using perpetual method and we credit inventory. Therefore, pupunta ulit tayo sa ating stock card monitoring. Yan, ganito ka-important dito, kaya dapat meron ka talaga niyan kapag may inventory ka tapos perpetual. Kaya ang binebenta mo ay 3,600 units. Ang gagamitin mong unit cost kasi ang average ay di yung running balance na 18.96. Okay? So 3,600, ito pa rin yun, times 36. So we will get 68,242. Okay? That amount will be deducted to 140,000 ulit, type na natin 149,0900, okay, minus 68,242. So the running balance is 142,2,658. And then sa units naman 78,650 minus 3,600, so we will get 75,050. And to determine the average unit cost, so we divide the total cost to the total unit, 75,050. So still, sabi natin kanina, hindi yan nababago whenever you make a sale. 18.96 pa rin. Okay, so ano naman ang highlight nitong tanong na to nung May 1? Sabi daw, 30% of which was immediately factored. What is factoring by the way of receivable? That is a sale of receivable. Okay, so yun lang naman yun eh. Factor means a sale. Kasi siguro, may nalimutan pala ako. Ay, pasensya naman. Hindi pa po nalalaman kung wala pa palang amount dito. 68,242. 68,242 yung nakwenta natin kanina. Okay? Balik tayo sa ating binabanggit. Okay? Di ba nagbenta ka on account, kaya meron kang account sa receivable. Pero immediately after, yung 30% down na to, binenta mo yung receivable. Binenta mo kasi gusto mong magkaroon ng cash. Factoring means sale. Sale of receivable. That's why you debit cash and you credit AR. O ganun lang yun. Nagbebenta ka ng receivable. Hindi ka nangongolekta, binenta mo. Okay? Pag ang factoring ay may dalawang klase, with recourse and without recourse. When we say with recourse, kung sakaling hindi mabayaran ng original na may utang, ikaw magbabayad. Okay? Pag sinabi na nating without recourse, pag hindi binayaran ng original na may utang, hindi mo babayaran. Di ba ikaw naman talaga yung inutangan kasi ikaw yung may receivable? Ang ginawa mo na lang, ibinenta mo yung receivable na yun sa iba. Sino nang mangongolekta? Hindi ba't yung binentahan mo, usually the bank? Kung sakaling yung customer mo hindi nagbayad at without recourse, wala ka ng pakialam dun. Okay, pero kung sakaling with recourse at hindi binayaran ng customer mo, babayaran mo yung bangko, yung binentahan mo, yung nag-factor ka ng receivable. Ganun yung theories nun. Okay? Pero sa problem na to walang sinabi. Paano ba pag-factoring? With or without recourse? Pag walang binanggit yung problem, we will assume without recourse. Therefore, this is really a sale of receivable. Okay? Debit, cash, and credit, hindi sale, but rather AR kasi binenta mo. Hindi naman lahat ang sabi ng problem, but rather 30% of which, ulitan, 998,000 times 30%. Okay? Sabi sa problem, di ba, 30%? Okay? So, how much is that? 299,400. So, therefore, you credit AR for 299,400. Yan na din ba yung cash? The answer is no. Kasi nga may 2% discount. The 2% na yan, that discount na yan, yan yung fee mo dun sa factor, dun sa bangko. May dalawang klase ito. Kung lagi mo siyang ginagawa o yung tinatawag na factoring on a continuing agreement, that will be a factoring fee or just a commission expense. Kung lagi mong ginagawa yung pagka-factor. Pero kung hindi mo naman yan palaging ginagawa, ang tawag doon ay factoring, casual factoring, hindi ka magre-record ng commission expense or factoring fee, but rather, you're just simply going to debit, gain or loss on factoring kung sakaling nalugi ka. Okay, kung sakaling may discount. Okay? Wala rin sinabi kung ito'y continuing agreement or casual factoring. So therefore, we need to assume. We will assume that this problem is casual factoring, hindi mo laging ginagawa. That's why you are going to debit loss on factoring, which is 2%. 2% nitong 30% ng receivable. So multiply by 2%. So that is 5,988. Kasi kailangan din naman kumita ng iyong factor, di ba? Okay, so how much now is the difference? So 299,400, okay, minus 5,988. Therefore, the cash that you receive is 293,412. Ayan, I believe that ends this paragraph. Oy! Isang paragraph pa for this page. And then matatapos na tayo. Siguro may isa't kalahating oras to. Joke lang. On January 1, 20A0, production yielded 58,000 units at a cost of 11 peso per unit. O, yun na. Okay? So, dito muna tayo sa stock card. So, ang sabi ng July 1, nakailang ka daw? Nag-yield ka daw ng 55,000 units at 11 peso per unit. So, therefore, 55,000 times 11. Okay. So, 605,000. Okay. Pagdating natin doon sa balance, kasi tinototal naman yan talaga. So, 75,050 plus 55,000. Okay. So, we will get 130,050. And then yung total cost naman, yung kanina na 142,2658 plus 605,000. So we will get 2,027,658. At pababago na ulit yung unit cost. Divided by 130,050. Talagang nababago yan every time na merong entry doon sa purchase or manufacture. Kasi nga, syempre, running, moving average. So 15.59. Okay? May entry din ba yan? Syempre naman. Okay? Nag-produce daw tayo, bagong papel na ulit. Okay? So, anong entry natin dyan? Nung July 1. Ayan. So we are going to debit inventory with the said amount of 605,000. So 605,000. Okay, anong credit natin? O wala na naman sinabi. So therefore, we'll just assume accounts payable kasi related sa inventory. Gano'n po assumption sa accounting pag wala sinabi? Sa actual practice naman, di mo, walang ganun kasi pwede ka magtanong. Okay? Tuloy pa tayo. On July 31, the entity sold 21,000 units in exchange for 14%, 3 million, 10-year debt security, incurring 30,000 in transaction costs. The security initially held for trading rose to 104 after 3 months and was subsequently reclassified as a security held for sale and collection with similar securities bearing a 9% effective rate. The debt security pays interest quarterly. So there is a sale. Okay? So that's why we credit sales. Yun. Okay? But then, anong debit mo? Hindi ka naman binayaran ng cash. But rather, ang ibinayad sa iyo ay security. Okay? Investment po ito. Okay? There are 3 classification of investment depending on the business model. So, what are those? What are those business model? If you intend to realize fair value changes, therefore, you will measure investment at fair value through profit or loss or FVPL kung trading to realize fair value changes. If you want to hold the investment, kung yung business model mo is to realize fair value changes and for collection of interest and principal, okay, so to sell, and then to collect the cash flow of principal and interest. Therefore, the investment will be measured at fair value through other comprehensive income. Okay? If your business model is to hold the investment, the debt investment, up to the date of maturity, just to collect the principal and interest up to the date of maturity, it will be treated as investment at amortized cost. Okay? So again, may tatlong klase ng investment, di ba yun? May tatlong investment classification. Okay, ngayon, anong classification ng investment na meron tayo? Okay? Ano yung i-debit mo dun sa credit na sale? Anong ka-partner? Sabi dito, it is initially held for trading. So in short, okay, your model is to realize fair value changes. That's why your debit is trading securities. Ayan. Okay? Now, magkano? Ayan. So, sabi dito, anong sabi? Okay? 3 million sana siya. 3 million. Okay? So, ayan. Ito namang 104, kasi nga, ang trading security is measured at fair value. Itong 104 ay hindi pa ngayon, but rather after 3 months. Okay, kailangan lang natin alamin, magkano yung fair value niya on the date of sale. Okay, on the date of exchange. Okay? 21 units for 14%. Ayan, walang fair value. So we will just assume kung ano yung face amount, yun na rin yung anyang fair value on the date of on July 1, on July 31, on the date of sale. So debit, trading securities for 3 million and credit sales for 3 million. Okay, tama. Ayan, sige. So tumuloy pa tayo. Okay? Meron ding transaction cost pertaining to the sale transaction. Ayan. So, anong gagawin natin sa transaction cost? That is directly attributable cost. Usually, that will be capitalized. Okay? Kasi nga, those costs are necessary sa investment. But then, there is one exemption. Kung yung investment mo ay trading securities, it will be expense outright. Because they are measured at fair value. Wala nang sense kung bakit mo siya i-capitalize. Kasi yung changes naman, diretso sa profit or loss, di ba? So, gawin ko na lang po, So, yung transaction cost, you are going to credit cash. Kasi, okay, nagkaroon ng transaction cost na 30,000. And then, you are going to debit transaction cost. Ikaw yung nagbenta pero nagkaroon ka ng transaction cost, di ba? For 30,000. Sino po yung entry natin on July 31? July 31 ito nung nagkaroon ng bentahan. Pero again, dahil nga we are using perpetual inventory method, okay? Diretso tayo sa stock card, mga kapatid. Ilan ang ating ibinebenta this time? 55,000 units. So sana tama yung problem. Kasya pa yung 55,000 units. Magkano ang cost na gagamitin? Siyempre, average po tayo sa 15.59. So, okay. So, ito na ulit yun. 15.59 times 55,000 units. So, we will get 857,525. Okay. And then, that will be deducted to the remaining balance. Ano ba ito? 26 ito, ano? Okay. 2. So, sorry. Atin mo nang recap. 1422. Sabi ko na, dapat maganda ang sulat. 658 plus 605,000. Okay. So, 2027,658, ma-minus natin yung ating binenta na 857,525. 857,525. So therefore, the remaining balance is 117,133. Okay, how about the remaining units? 130,050 minus 55,000 yung binebenta mo. So therefore, we will get 124,550. Still, kahit anong mangyari, kasi nga bentahan yan, the unit cost should be the same. Double check lang natin. 1170,133. Sorry, 1170,133 divided by 124,550. So we will get still, nabago. Yan na. Nagguguluhan na tayo, mga kapatid. So 1170,133 divided by 124. Okay? Parang mali ito. Ulitan. 130,050 minus 55,000. Ayan na, Tama, mali ito. Okay? Ulit. 130,050 minus 55,000. So we will get 75,050. Ayan, buti lang nagdo-double check. 1170,133 divided by 75. 1170,133 divided by 75,050. So we will get still 15.59. Ayan, tagal tayo dun ah. Okay, so again, we are going to debit cost of sales or cost of goods sold and credit inventory. Inventory amounting to 857,525. Ayan. Okay, so that's the entry for this sentence, di ba? For this sentence, sa first sentence lamang. Ay, tumuloy pa tayo. Sabi, it is initially held for trading. And then it became 104 after 3 months. Okay? Sagutan na din natin yun. Okay? After 3 months, nag-ano daw siya, tumaas ng value. Okay, what is that date? July, August, September. September, pwede ka na talagang mag-entry nun. Pero pwede rin naman na wag muna at gawin mo na lang dun sa end of the year. So therefore, we will just simply ignore this one. Okay, kasi September pa lang naman yung 104. Pwede mag-entry, pwede hindi, optional. Okay, and was subsequently reclassified as held for sale and collection. So basically, after 3 months, siguro yung pinupunto lang ng problem, nung September, naisipan mo, ay ayoko nang maging trading security, I want to change my model. I want to change and go to the model of sale and collection. That is FBOCI, Fair Value Through Other Comprehensive Income. Kasi nga, your purpose is sale and collection. Kasi kapag trading security, sale lang. Pag may collection na rin, malamang FBOCI na yan. Pero still, ano ang sinasabi ng standard? When the company opted to change the business model, the effect will happen at the next reporting period. So this is just September. Okay? So therefore, irrelevant itong statement na to kasi ang effect pa nito ay hindi ngayong taong ito but rather dun sa kasunod na taon. Okay? So yun, so baliwala na rin itong mga statement with a similar securities bearing 9% effective rate. Wala pa po tayong pakialam dyan. Lahat ng yan ay may effect pa the following year. Yung change o yung reclassification. Okay? Tuloy pa tayo. Kung mayroon man tayo dyan pakialam ay ito. It pays interest quarterly. So July, di ba? July 31 yan. July, August, September, October. So noong October 31, ay we will be having a debit to cash and credit interest income. Bakit? Eh kasi nga yan naman ay debt securities, nag-i-interest yan. Okay, di ba 3 million yun? O, 3 million. Okay, 3 million. Ang kanyang nominal rate is 14%. So times 0.14. So that is the annual. So divided by 12. This is the monthly. And then it pays up every 3 months. So times 3. So therefore, we have interest income of 105,000. Okay? So yun. Moreover, October to, di ba? October 31, 7, 8, 9, 10. Moreover, diretso na rin tayo para tapos atong paragraph na to. Pagdating ng December 31, okay? Pagdating ng December 31, what will happen? Okay, magbabayad ulit siya ng mag-a-accrued tayo ng interest. So we credit interest income and we debit interest receivable. Ayan. Okay, pero this time, ulitin na natin, 3 million times the rate of 14% times 14%, okay, times 14% divided by 12. Okay, this is monthly. Since October yung huling bayaran, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 2 months. So it will be multiplied by 2. So therefore, the interest receivable is 70,000. Dapat sana gagawin ko yun mamaya sa adjusting entries. Ay okay lang, dito na para tapos na ito. Okay? Ano bang problema natin? Wala pa ding binabanggit na fair value nung December 31. Walang binanggit kasi itong 104 ay fair value nung September 30. Mamaya, baka meron dun sa last page. Sa last part nung problem. Okay? Let's move on. Oh, isang page na lang. Oh. Okay? Anong sabi dito? On July 31, the company reinforced the building, incurring 185,000 in maintenance and calibration expenditure that extended its useful life by 10 years. Ano namang topic ang gustong patunayan itong paragraph na to? Ito ay patungkol sa subsequent costs. Okay? What is subsequent cost? Meron ka ng PPE before, constructed na siya. And then later on, nagkaroon ng additional cost incurred. And then ang tanong doon ay ikakapitalize ba siya or i-expense yung subsequent cost. Okay, ang theory niya ay ganito. If it extends the life, it improves efficiency and safety, di ba? If it ano pa ba yung isa? If it increases the capacity, therefore it will be capitalized. Ang tanong, nangyari ba yun sa problem na to daan sa yes? Okay? Kasi ang sabi dito, it extends the life by 10 years. So therefore, capitalizable itong 185,000 na yan. Okay? So ano magiging entry nung July 31 for that? The entry for July 31 would be, okay, debit building, kasi kung naaalala ninyo, di ba? Nagko-construct tayo ng building, ito yan, office building. So with debit building, okay, with debit office building, okay, and then, ang assumption nga natin kapag walang sinabi, pag PPE, dahil sa Ireland, ay cash ang ating i-credit, amounting to 185,000. Kahit maintenance ang binanggit, it still extends the life. So capitalizable yung 185,000. Ang problema ko lang dito sa tanong na to, okay? Ang sabi dun sa unang paragraph, dun sa unang part ng problem, natapos daw yung construction ay after 8 months nung January 1. Ay yung after 8 months nung January 1, di ba ito yun? Natapos yung construction ay September 1. Okay? How come? Paano mangyayari na noong July 31 ay i-reinforce mo yung building ay hindi pa tapos? Kasi when we use the word reinforce, meaning meron ng tapos, dinadagdagan mo lang, pinapatibay mo lang, kaya nga reinforced eh. I believe may problema tayo. So ano gagawin natin? Magbabago po tayo ng problem, we will correct the problem for the sake na ito yung masagutan. Siguro pipili tayo alin na babaguhin natin. Okay, wag na lang to. Wag na lang 8 months. Okay? Siguro after 4 months. Sige, 4 months. After 4 months. Dinesisyonan ko na, decision ako. So hindi po yan 8 months. So another correction dun sa problem. Good for 2 points. Dapat 3 points na to. Okay, dapat ay baguhin. Kasi nga nagkaroon ng reinforcement. So therefore, babaguhin din natin to. That is after 4 months. So therefore, January, February, March, April, May. May 1 natapos. Okay, so May 1. Tama, May 1 natapos yung office building para ma-reinforce mo noong July 31. And then na-extend mo by 10 years. Okay, mamaya na yung depreciation kahulihan. Tapos na po yung entry dito sa paragraph na to. Yun, last 3 last 3. October 1. Okay? On October 1, 20 AO, it obtained 300,000 loan to improve the machinery. O yun. So it could generate an additional 40,000 units, securing the loan with assigned receivable and agreeing to a 1.2% monthly interest payable until the loan's 1-year maturity. 277,000 of the receivable were collected after 1 month and the entire loan was repaid the following month. Okay? So ano ang sabi? Ayan. So you incur a loan to improve the machinery. Okay? Magkano na loan mo? 300,000. So entryhan muna natin yung paglo-loan noong October 1. October 1, we are going to debit loans, debit cash amounting to 300,000. And we are going to credit loans payable amounting to 300,000. Okay? Saan mo ginamit yung pera? Ang sabi daw, okay, it's used to improve the machinery. Okay? Ang tanong, ikakapitalize ba itong 300,000 or i-expense? Ang sagot ay ikakapitalize because sabi dito, mag-i-increase daw yung production capacity. Okay, so therefore it improves the efficiency of the machine. Di ba yun yung pinag-uusapan natin kanina? Subsequent costs are capitalizable if it extends the life, it improves efficiency, in this case, yun ang nangyari, and safety, and it increases the capacity. Okay, it improves the efficiency. Okay, that's why ang entry pa natin afterwards, ginamit mo yung pera, so you credit cash for 300,000 and you are going to debit the account title machinery also amounting to 300,000. Ayun yung nangyari noong October 1. Tapos na ba o meron pa? Meron pa. Okay, kung itutuloy pa natin, bakit ka ba pinayagan ni bangko na makautang? Kasi ang sabi dito, kasi inassign mo yung iyong receivable. Ano naman yung assignment? Okay, assignment is parang mangungutang ka pero hahanap ka ng collateral. Ang collateral mo this time ay accounts receivable mo. Okay? Pero this time, ang amount is 277,000. Okay? So, ang entry doon is debit AR assigned kasi inassign mo and credit accounts receivable amounting to 277,000. Ayan, okay? Hindi naman na bago ang total ng accounts receivable mo. Kasi nga lumipat lang. Ikaw pa din naman ang may-ari, kinulateral mo lang. Kailangan lamang makita na naka-assign na siya. Okay, tama ba ako? Mali pala ako. Kasi ito pala yung nakolekta. So ang inassign mo, syempre 300,000 din kasi yun yung pinautang. Sasabihin ko sana may problema yung problema, ako pala may problema. Kasi normally kapag ka nag-a-assign tayo, dapat mas mataas yung value ng receivable kaysa dun sa nauutang mo. Eh walang sinabi di ba kung magkano ang inassign. So we will just assume they are the same. Okay? Ito nga pala yung nakolekta. Ayan. So AR assign, yan po yung naganap. Okay, tumuli pa tayo. Another page. Another page. Okay? Ano pa ang sabi ng problem? Meron daw na 1.2% interest to be payable monthly. Okay? So that is October. So malamang tayo November 1 na. November 1. So you are going to debit interest expense. Okay? And you are going to credit cash. Okay? Kasi nagbabayad ka ng ng 1.2. Okay? Interest monthly. So 300,000 ang utang mo times 0.012. Okay? So the interest is 3,600 pesos per month. Okay? Atin mo nang unawain. So 1%, 1.2. 277,000 were collected after 1 month. So nakakolekta daw ng 277,000. Okay? So therefore we are going to debit cash and credit AR assigned. Ayan, 277,000. Okay? Ayan, nakolekta mo yan. O ano pang sabi? Were collected after 1 month. And the entire loan. So ang assumption dito, dahil nga naka-assign yun, talagang yung makukolekta ay pambayad dun sa utang. Okay? So matapos mo makolekta, ibinayad mo rin to sa utang mo. So may kasunod ka pang entry, debit, loans payable, and credit cash amounting to 277,000. Okay? Kasi matapos mo makolekta, ibinayad mo rin. Okay? Yan nung nangyari nung after 1 month, November 1. Okay? So, were collected after 1 month. And the entire loan was repaid the following month. Ibig sabihin, diretsuin na natin, tatapusin na natin tong paragraph na to, and that will happen on December 1. Okay? Anong sabi? Nakolekta mo yung 277,000 at binayaran mo na rin the following month. Pero wala rin naman sinabi na nakakolekta ka ulit ng receivable. Basta sinabi, binayaran mo na lang. Okay? So, gawin na lang natin. First, magbabayad po tayo ng interest. Debit interest, expense, and credit cash. This time, ang utang mo originally 300,000, di ba? Nung after 1 month, nakakolekta ka ng 277,000 at niremit mo na rin yan. Malamang ganun yung nangyari kasi nga inassign mo eh. So natitirang balance pa ng utang mo ay 23,000. Yan na lang ang mag-i-interest ng 1.2%. Okay? Kasi yun na lang naman ang natitirang utang mo. 276 pesos na lang ang interest expense mo. At ang sabi ng problem, babayaran mo yung utang, yung natitirang balance eh. So debit, loans payable. Okay? And you are going to credit cash. Okay. Again, 300,000 yung inutang, 277 na kolekta na at nabayaran mo na rin. Therefore, may 23,000 ka pang babayaran. So debit, loans payable, and credit cash of 23,000. Okay? So tumuli pa tayo. And then afterwards, yan, wala ka ng utang, wala ka na ding AR assigned. So therefore, mag-e-entry ka ulit, debit AR assigned, debit AR, and credit AR assigned. Hindi na kasi siya nakasanglay kasi bayad ka na dun sa utang mo. Ang iyong isinangla 300,000 and then nakolekta na kanina yung 277,000, therefore yung 23,000 ay ibabalik mo na sa iyong general AR. Okay, credit AR assigned, debit AR. Okay? So sana maliwanag yung part na yun, ano? Ayan. Kahit po binabanggit ng problem na after 1 year pa babayaran, still hindi yun yung nangyari. 2 months thereafter, nabayaran mo na yung utang mo. Okay? So let's move on. November 30. On November 30, what happened? On November 30, the company sold 10,000 units on account at 98 peso per unit. Ayan na. And on the same day, granted another entity a 3-year loan. Ibang transaction na to. Doon muna tayo sa first part nung November 30. Okay? So sabi nagbenta daw tayo. So therefore, on account. So debit AR and credit sales. Okay? 98 per unit. So 10,000 times 98. So that is 980,000. Okay? At dahil may pagbebenta, automatically may kasunod itong entry. We are going to debit cost of sales, cost of goods sold, and we are going to credit inventory. Ayan. So, nasa na ulit yung ating monitoring. Okay, kasi kailangan natin ito. Okay, nagbenta ka ulit. Nagbenta ka ng ilan? 10,000 noong November 30. November 30, 10,000 units. Okay? So, 10,000 ang mawawala. Ang cost niyan malamang 15.59. So, 10,000 times 15.59. So, we will get 155,900. And then, pagdating naman dito sa balance, 1170. Okay, 1170, 133 minus 155,900. So, we will get 1014233. And then, yun namang total unit, 75,050 minus 10,000. So, we will get 65,050. Magkano yung unit cost? 1,014,233 divided by 65,050. Dapat parehas pa rin. 15.59. Okay, so alam na po natin kung magkano yung cost. Okay, so we debit cost of sales. Okay, or cost of goods sold, 155,900, and credit inventory for 155,900. Okay, so that ends the transaction for that part. Okay, let's move on. And on the same date, granted another entity a 3-year loan at a premium with a 14% stated rate, 1,100,000 face value and origination cost, yielding an effective rate of 3%. Ano namang nangyari dito? Kaya kakaiba po yung problema, no? Kasi sa pagkakataong ito, this time, ikaw naman yung nagpautang, nagmukha kang bangko. Kasi yung topic na loans receivable, okay, kasi may loans dito, may origination fee, ay particular lamang sa mga financing institution, okay, such as the banks. Okay? Pero we treat the problem as it is. So, sa pagkakataong ito, November 30, okay, meron tayong debit loans receivable kasi nagpapautang ka. Ayan. And you are going to credit cash kasi nga nagpapautang ka. Okay? Ang loans receivable mo is 1,100,000. Okay? And then, may cash ka na 1,100,000 na pinautang. Pero ang punto natin, yun lang ba talaga ang nangyari dito sa pagpapautang na to? The answer is no. Kasi meron daw origination cost. At tapos ang effective rate mo yielding 3%. I believe this is additional 3%. Ganun na lang i-assume natin. Alangan naman maging 3%. Ang stated ay 14%. Then naging ang ating pong effective rate ay naging 17%. Okay? So, hindi na naman sinabi kung magkano yung origination cost. Okay? But rather, okay? Ano nangyari dito? Ang tawag dito? Nawawala yung market value. So ano gagawin natin? We will compute again. Katulad nung kanina, okay? We will determine the market price of the principal and then the interest. Okay? The principal is 1,100,000. Okay? So susulat ko pala, hindi ko ita-type. 1,100,000. And then the interest, yun na nga, is 14%. So times 0.14 is 154,000. Kasi yun yung stated rate eh. And then this will be multiplied to their factor. Okay? So again, 17% ang gagamitin natin. Yun yung ating i-assume. There's an additional increase of 3%. Okay? And how long is the loan? That is 3 periods. So therefore, 1 divided by 1.17 for 3 times 1. Sorry. 1 divided by 1.17. 1, 2, 3 periods. So therefore, it became 0.6244. Ayan, yan yung kanyang PB of 1 for 3 periods at 17%. And then afterwards, yung kabila naman for 3 periods din, pero PB of OA of 1. 1 divided by 1.17 at gagamitin natin yung M+. 1. Ay, naku, nagkamali na naman. 1 divided by 1.17. 1 time. 2 time. 3 times. Okay? And then memory recall. So that will be 2.2096. And then we will compute now the market price. 1,100,000 multiplied to 0.6244. To get the present value of the principal, 686,840. And then interest naman, 154,000. 154,000. So, ano na? 154,000 times 2.2096. So, we will get 340,279. 278. Ayan. And then we add 686. 840. Yan, sana tama mga type natin. So 1027, okay, 118. Ayan. This is the market price. Okay? That is the market price, and then the face is 1,100,000. Okay? This time, difference nila. Okay, that will be the interest. 72,882. Oh, that will be the interest, or this time that will be the unearned interest income. Okay, so yan. There will be another entry for this one, for the interest. Actually, pwede yung kasabay, pero this time inihiwalay na lang natin. Basta ang sinabi, kunwari, nagpautang ka ng 1.1 million, pagkatapos, nagkaroon ng origination cost, dahil doon tumaas ng 3% yung interest mo, ano. So, nagkaroon ka ng unearned interest. Ibig sabihin nun, nagbigay sa'yo yung pinapautang mo. Okay, kasi may origination cost. At yung origination cost na yun ay hindi iti-treat as interest income immediately, but rather unearned muna kasi may time factor. That is amounting to 72,882. 72,882. Okay? That is the entry for the loan. Okay? I believe tapos na rin yung problem na to, itong part na to. Okay? At ang kahuli-hulihan, ayan na, oh. Kahulihan na, December 31 na, matatapos na tayo. Makukuha na natin yung 2 points. On December 31, 20AO, the debt security had a fair value of 102. Ayan na, okay? So we will treat them one by one. Naalala nyo yung yung ating trading securities na na-reclassify. Okay, balikan nga natin, hanapin natin yun. Nasaan na ba siya? Dami na kasi. Okay, nasaan na yung ating debt securities? Ayan. So ang ating trading securities, ito yung ating trading securities. It is measured at 3 million for now. Okay, kahit siya ay 104, after 3 months wala tayong pake. So ano ang sabi dito dun sa dulo ng taon? Sa dulo ng taon, it became 102. It became 102. Ito po yung ating trading securities. Sana maliwanag, 3 million siya. Ano magiging entry natin on December 31 para sa trading securities? Okay, ang entry doon, because there is an increase, we are going to debit trading securities. Okay? And we are going to credit unrealized gain dash trading securities. How much? Okay? Ang increase, ang kanyang recorded value ay 3 million. Okay, so minus 3 million. Tapos ang kanyang fair market value this time, 3 million times 1.02 is 3,060,000. Okay? Therefore, the increase is 60,000. Kasi nga, 3 million, di ba? 3,060,000 to. So we debit trading security for 60,000 and credit unrealized gain for 60,000. Okay? DS din. Or that will go to profit or loss. Kasi nga, ang basis natin is yung fair value changes. Okay? So that ends the first part. I believe sa trading securities naman, itong part na to, na-entryhan na natin kanina yung kanyang interest collection nung October 31 at saka yung kanyang accrued interest nung December 31. Wala naman tayong pakialam sa effective rate kasi next year pa ang effect nung kanyang reclassification from FBPL to FBOCI. Okay? Yun na po yun. O let's move on to the second sentence. The expected credit losses were 2% for receivable age 0 to 120 and 4% for those over 121 days. Nako po, ito yung magulo. Okay, so anong gagawin natin? Okay, ayusin lang natin. We have to monitor our accounts receivable. Kasi nga, ito yung allowance for doubtful accounts. So sa una, wala naman tayong accounts receivable. Hahanapin natin lahat yan sa ating entry. Ganun talaga, hindi natin siya minonitor kanina eh. So dito we have AR of 998,000 and then benenta natin ito, yung 299,400, yung 30%. So that is 1. Meron pa ba tayong accounts receivable dito? Okay. Dito nag-AR assign tayo. Ito pa rin malamang yung related AR dun sa unahan. Kasi para magka-AR ka, dapat nagka-sales ka muna. Eh di ba nilipat lang naman natin, wala naman tayong sales, di ba? Okay, so ano pa? Ayan o, ito rin naman yung AR kanina. At saka ito pa, ito. So basically, dalawa ang ating AR. Isa, yun, at saka itong pangalawa na to. Yan na. Okay? So ang tanong, gaano katagal yung mga AR na yon, yung buhay nila? Sige, so sagutan na natin. So first one, may AR tayo nung May. Okay, May 1. So ngayon ay December 31. Ilang araw na ang lumipas? So sabi, dalawa lang naman ang kategory, 0 to 120. So 120 is how many months? 30, 60, 90, 120, 4 months. So this is May. So May, June, July, August, September. So September. So hindi na siya pasok sa 4%. So malamang itong isang AR na to ay doon na sa 4% over 121 days. Isa pa, may pangalawa pa tayong AR. Ito, November 30, pasok pa siya dun sa sa 120 days. Yes, kasi that is November 30. Only 1 month elapsed after this date. So therefore, okay, to answer the second part for the allowance for uncollectible accounts, we will create a table, aging. So I have here the AR balance. So lagay natin dito date, age. Okay, so that is 0 to 120 and then 1 over 121 days. Sige. So we have here the amount and then the rate and then the doubtful accounts or the allowance. Okay. So okay, so sabi dito dito ay 2% and then this time is 4%. Okay? So I believe, okay, itong AR na to, itong AR na naon, itong kahulihan I mean, okay, ay wala namang kasunod na transaction kasi ito na yung November 30, di ba? So, therefore, it will become 980,000. 980,000 lang ito. Ayan. And then, yung isang AR, yung medyo komplikado, ang ating i-monitor. So, kuha tayo ng calculator. Okay? So, magkano yun? So, AR, we have 988,000. 998,000. Tapos, nag-credit tayo ng 299,400. Okay, tapos ano bang nangyari? Tapos nag-credit tayo ng 300,000. Okay, di ba? Nag-credit tayo ng 300,000. Hindi to kasali kasi siya din naman yun, AR assign pati yan. Okay, then nag-debit tayo ng 23,000. So we add 23,000. So therefore, the balance of the AR is 421,600. Okay, they will be multiplied by their corresponding rate. So 2%, so 8,432 at yung isa naman ay 980,000 times. Okay. Parang may problema tong problem na to. Isa pa. Ano ang sabi? Okay? Pag 0 to 120 ay 4%, 2%. Then pag over 121 ay 4%. Baliktad ako. Okay? So therefore, ayan. Alin ba babaguhin natin? Baguhin lang natin to. Baliktad. Ang 0 to 120 ay itong 980,000. At tapos yung over 121 days ay itong 421,600. So baliktad. Okay? So yan na po. 980,000 times 2%, we will get 19,600. At yung kabila naman, for 21,600. Okay? Okay, for 21,600 multiply to 4%, so we will get 16,864 to get a total allowance of 36,464. Ayan na yun. Okay? So anong entry natin dito? We'll just simply debit doubtful accounts expense. Ayan, debit doubtful accounts expense and credit allowance for doubtful accounts. Theories nga pala sa adjusting entry na to. Okay, anong method ang ginagamit? Ang ginagamit ay aging. That's why you have to determine really kung ano yung edad nung iyong receivable. Okay? And then, kapag aging, dapat alam mo rin yung rule. Ano ang lalabas dito? Is it the doubtful accounts expense or the required allowance balance? The answer is, this is the required allowance balance. Okay? So, ibig sabihin kung merong previous balance, you have to deduct. But then, since this is the first year of operation, wala namang before or previous balance yung allowance. That's why, whatever is the required allowance balance will be the same as a doubtful accounts expense. Pero again, hindi po laging ganito to. Madalas may minaminus pa dyan kung magkano yung dating balance nung allowance for doubtful accounts. Okay, that is the entry for the second part. Oy, nakakadalawang sentence na tayo. Okay, next one. And the year-end exchange rate is 51 peso is to $1. Para saan ito? Naalala ninyo, okay? We have here cash in foreign bank. Okay? Dito ay ang importante is yung foreign transaction kasi we record as it happens. Pero sa case na to, hindi na siya foreign transaction but rather that is a foreign translation. Bakit translation na? Kasi nga year-end na. Okay? Ang tanong, magkano ba yung exchange rate noon at saka ngayon? Gladly, itong problem, sinabi 51 peso is to $1 nung January 1, pero ngayong December 31 ngayong December 31, okay, ang exchange rate ay ganun pa rin, 51 peso is to $1. So meron bang epekto yung foreign translation? Wala. Okay? So walang entry diyan since yung exchange rate nung transaction date ay the same exchange rate nung closing date nung December 31. Okay? Pero para masaya, gawin pa natin komplikado, palta natin. Gawin natin, let's say, kunwari ay 52. Okay? Binago pa natin yung problema para sa inyo, para ma-appreciate ninyo. Okay? Naging 52. So what will happen? Will there be an entry? Yes. Okay? So, what will be an entry on what will be the entry on December 31? Okay? So, isolve natin. Okay? There will be a debit to cash. Cash, foreign bank. Okay? And there will be a credit. Okay? Credit unrealized gain. Okay? Kasi nga, tumaas yung exchange rate, pabor sa'yo. Then, that is translation gain. That is an OCI actually. Ayan. Unrealized gain, translation adjustment. Ayan. Okay, magkano? Okay, di ba tumaas ng piso? Ilan nga ba ang ating dollar before? Ang ating dollar po ay 17,500 $. From 51 naging 52. So yun na rin yung gains. Okay, kasi 17,500 times 1, yung increase is a gain on your side. Unrealized gain, translation adjustment. Kasi nga, naging 52 yung exchange rate. Okay, so sana maliwanag yung part na yon. Let's move on. Oy, last part na to. Last part. And then depreciation na lang siguro yung kulang natin at saka yung ilang amortization. Okay, ano ang sabi dito? The petty cash fund contained vouchers of 7,500, cash in coins of 42,000, IOUs from employees of 3,500, and sealed envelope with a cash of 600. Okay? So this is now accounting for petty cash fund at the end of the period. Okay? Inaalam dito kung yung impress fund balance mo ay balance pa ba doon sa kung ano ang composition niya at year end. So therefore, solution muna tayo. Okay? So yung impress fund balance mo nung January 1, if you can remember, o pinapakita ulit natin, meron tayong balance na 50,000. So therefore, that will be 50,000 yung impress fund balance. Tapos ang sabi dito, dapat naintindihan natin yung sentence. Nakakita ka pa ng sealed envelope with a cash of 600 pesos. Ang tanong ay sa'yo ba to? Ang assumption sa mga ganyan ay hindi. Ang nangyayari kasi dyan, itong si petty cash custodian, tumatanggap ng pera galing sa kanyang mga ka-empleyado. Siya ang ginagawang treasurer, tagapagtago ng pera nila. So ibig sabihin nun, i-add mo itong 600. Hindi ito galing sa kumpanya, kundi galing ito sa ambagan ng mga empleyado na pinatago sa'yo. So therefore, that is a sealed envelope with cash. So pwedeng yun na ang ating explanation, sealed envelope with cash. Ang assumption natin, kabukod yan. Okay? So therefore, that will be the total fund to be accounted for. Sa inyong hahanapin mo, 50,600. Simple lang ang konsepto sa petty cash fund accounting. Kung ano dapat yung accountable, si petty cash custodian, ituturo mo, i-account natin ano ang mga meron siya at year-end. Ang sabi dito, at year-end, ito yung mga meron siya. Meron siyang vouchers, okay? Vouchers amounting to 7,500. Meron siyang cash in coins, okay, na 42,000. At meron tayong IOUs from employees. Ano po yung IOUs? That is receivable from employees. Kasi siguro, itong si petty cash custodian, pinapautang niya yung mga empleyado. Okay? O kaya approve ng management, pautangin. Pero bigyan ng cheque, bigyan ng pera, galing sa petty cash fund. That is amounting to 3,500. Yan yung mga meron ka. Okay? And then, itong 600. Nasa kaya to 600 na to? I believe hindi yan kahalo dito. doon sa 42,000. Ang assumption ko ay ganito kasi it is sealed envelope. Ibig sabihin hindi pa nabubuksan. Kung hindi pa nabubuksan, malamang wala yan doon. Yun na lang ang ating assumption doon sa problem. Therefore, we will still again, okay, include here in the bottom, okay? So that is amounting to 600. So again, ano ang konsepto sa petty cash fund accounting? Kukunin mo yung total fund to be accounted for at ikukumpara yan dun sa total fund accounted for as follows. Kumbaga, ito yung obligasyon ni petty cash custodian, ito naman yung nahanap mo. Okay, magkano yung total yan? 7,500 plus 42,000 plus 3,500 plus 600. So therefore, ang total amount ay 53,600. Anong nangyari? Bakit nagkaganon? Mas mataas yung nakita mo kaysa dun sa accountable niya. Siguro meron tayong tinatawag na cash overage. Okay? Magkano? Okay, so minus 50,600. So, mali ang type ko. 53,000, dito. 53,600 yung nakita mo, pero ang kanyang obligasyon ay 50,600 only. Okay, therefore, sobra yung pera. Nang magkano? 3,000. Bakit nagsosobra? Okay, siguro ay malay mo na pakulang ang sukli niya. Diba? Therefore, nagkaroon ng income. O kaya malay mo yung pera niya ihalo. Pagka sakaling mayroong short or over, okay, iniimbestigahan yan kung saan talaga siya. Like income ba siya, payable to custodian, something like that. Okay, pero after investigation, halimbawa nalaman na yan ay kay custodian, so therefore that will be payable to the custodian. Pero kung sakaling hindi na matrace talaga ang assumption sa company yan, so that will be treated as a miscellaneous income. Okay? So pinapa-entryhan yun yung requirement. Therefore gawin po natin nung December 31, may entry ba dun sa petty cash fund? Yes. Okay, kasi nga ang entry sa impress fund system kapag petty cash fund is upon establishment, upon increase or decrease of the fund, or every December 31 whenever there is no replenishment as an adjusting entry. Okay, sabi, tataas daw ang petty cash fund. So we debit petty cash fund. Okay? Amounting to 3,000 kasi nga may overage. Okay? And then, itong mga to, yung mga nakita mo dun sa pondo, i-entryhan na din. So, you have your vouchers. Ang assumption dyan ay expenses. So, we debit expenses. Okay? 7,500. And then, we are going to debit also IOU from employee or receivable. Okay? From employees. Okay? So, okay, mali ang entry ko, ano? Receivable from employees amounting to 3,500. Then we credit. Okay, we credit cash overage. Okay, na later on, pwede yan maging miscellaneous income amounting to 3,000. Okay? Then, may mali nga tayong entry, ano? Hindi po ito naka-debit kasi yan ay para lang doon sa cash overage kung yan yung ka-partner. And then we are going to credit petty cash fund. Okay, how much will be the credit of the petty cash fund? So, 7,500 plus 3,500. Dapat talaga ang credit mo 11,000. Pero dahil nga may overage na 3,000, okay, ang naging entry mo lang ay 8,000. Okay, so yun lamang. Magkasalip na isa-isay natin, kinompound entry na po natin. Sana gagawin ko sana yung sa overage lang muna. Pero meron pa nga palang cash in vouchers and receivable from employees. Yung sealed envelope with cash, wala na tayong pakialam doon kasi hindi naman yun atin. Tsaka na account naman natin parehas. Okay, so therefore, walang entry para doon. Okay, I believe that ends the entry for the petty cash fund accounting. So ano pa ang problema natin? Dalawang bagay pa. Okay, dalawang bagay lang, matatapos na tayo. The first one is the depreciation. Okay, magde-depreciate po ba tayo? Yes. Okay, sige, lubos-lubusin natin tong problem na to kahit abutin tayo ng 2 oras. Okay, so ano-ano ba ang mga machine or equipment na meron tayo? First, we have the machine here, 2.9 million. Okay, so i-depreciate ba natin to? Yes. Okay, that's why we are going to entry debit depreciation. Okay, and we are depreciation expense dash machine. Okay, and we are going to credit accumulated depreciation dash machine. Okay, magkano? Ayan. So balikan ulit natin yung problem natin pertaining to the machinery. The machinery, sabi dito, ang kanyang life, ito yung cost niya, 2.9 million. Okay? Pero binanggit ba kung gaano kahaba yung kanyang life? Okay? So sabi dito, cost, fair value, wala, hindi binanggit. Okay, paano gagawin natin? Wala tayong magagawa, walang sinabi, di ba? So we will assume, okay, kasi kulang na naman yung problem, with, okay, useful life. of 5 years. O 5 years na lang. Okay? Pagkatapos nun, ano pa ang nangyari dun sa machinery? I believe may nangyari pa afterwards eh. Sabi din dun sa problem natin, okay? So, nagkaroon ng nung July 1, after half of the year, nagkaroon ng ng subsequent costs, okay? Na 3 million, 'di ba? 3 million tapos nag-increase yung production rate, therefore it will be capitalized dun sa machine. Tapos anong naging epekto nito? Okay? Ala, sige. Tama ba? Tama ba ako? Ito ba 'yon? O sige. Hindi ito 'yon. Hanapin natin. Okay. Sige. Nasa na ba yan? Nalilito na. Haba kasi ng problem eh. Joke lang. Okay. Meron yun eh. Yan. Land, building, vehicle. May vehicle pa tayo. Sige. So, nasan yung ating machine dito? Ang ating machine ay nung October 1. Post ko muna yung problem. Ayan, so inayos ko muna yung papel. Pasensya na, pinost ko yung video. In-stapler ko muna para hindi magulo. Ang dami na kasi ng papel natin, okay? So tatapusin na natin yung problem. Balik na po tayo. Okay? So we are just going to adjust for the depreciation of our property, plant, and equipment. First, we have here the machine. Okay? Ano ba yung mga date ng transaction ng machine? First, we have here the January 1. Binanggit na nga natin kanina. Sana nakita ulitan. Okay? So, first, we have here the January 1 transaction. Yung acquisition ng machine. And then, okay, nagkaroon pa po tayo ng subsequent costs para dun sa machinery nung October 1. Okay? Ano ang nangyari nga ulit? Yan, dito naman tayo sa problem. Doon sa January 1, syempre, yan po yung ating investment nung owner. Nag-invest siya ng machinery. Kaso nga lamang, walang sinabi kung ano yung useful life nung machine. So therefore, we assume, okay, that the machine had a useful life of, 5 years. So, 5 years. Wala kasing sinabi eh. Tapos, nung October 1, okay, ito nawawala, nalaglag kasi ito, kaya hindi ko makita. Okay, nung October 1, nagkaroon ng subsequent cost to improve the machine. Okay? Wala ding sinabi that there is an effect in the useful life. Okay? But then, we capitalize because there is an increase in efficiency. Okay? So therefore, we will still use the 5-year life yung inassume natin kanina. Okay? Sagutan na lang natin para mas ma-appreciate ito. Okay? What will be our computation? Dahil dalawa yung machine, dalawa na rin yung ating gawing computation. The first one is for the original of 2,900,000. 2,900,000, wala namang residual value. That will be divided to 5. Okay? And then yung kabila naman, yung nangyari noong October 1. Okay, October 1. Pakita natin. Okay? Yung nangyari noong October 1, the machine we debited is 300,000. So, also, 300,000 will be divided by 5. Ang pagkakaiba lang, this one will be multiplied by to 12/12. Kasi 1 year mong hinawakan. Ito naman kasi, October 1, October, November, December, 3 months. So this will be multiplied by 3/12. Kasi nga yung depreciation ay depende lamang dun sa period of use. O, solve na lang natin. So 2,900,000, okay, yung value ng machine, again, pakita ko ulit ng isa pa. Okay, yung atin pong machine, ito 2,900,000, okay, will be divided by 5. Our assumed useful life, 580,000. And then, the 300,000 subsequent cost will also be divided to 5. Okay, kasi 5-year yung life. Okay, ang assumption ay kasabay. Ayan. Pero, may mali pa pala tayo, So, 5 siya, pero siya ay, October 1, ginanap, di ba? October 1. So, therefore, babaguhin natin. Okay? Ulitin natin, mali ako eh. So, ang ibig ko sabihin, kasi January 1 yung original acquisition, kakamali pa kung kailan binago yan. Original acquisition, tapos ngayon October 1, ilang buwan yung lumipas, that is 9 months. Okay? So, yung 9 months na yun will be deducted to the total life. So, 5 times 12, okay, yan yung total life, minus 9. So, therefore, 51 months na lang siya. So, that will be multiplied to 3/51. Kasi nga itong 300,000, hindi na siya mag-amortize for 60 months. Hindi siya magdi-depreciate for 60 months. Siya ay magdi-depreciate only for 51 months. So 300,000, okay? 300,000 divided by 51. At dahil 3 months mong ginamit times 3. So that will be 17,647. Okay? So yung total nung dalawa, 580,000. That will be the total depreciation, 597,647. So debit depreciation expense, 597,647. And credit accumulated depreciation machine, 597,647. Ano po yung binabanggit natin? Yung 2.9 million talagang divided by 5 yan. Okay? So therefore, 580,000 kasi isang buong taon. Ito namang 300,000, 9 months na yung lumipas bago pa siya magamit. Okay? So therefore, yung dating 60 months, naging na lamang 51 months. Dahil yun ay October, November, December, 3 months lang siyang magdi-depreciate. Okay? Sana tama ang math natin. So that is our depreciation for our machinery. Okay? Ano pa yung ating i-depreciate? We have the office building. So we debit depreciation. Okay? Dash. Depreciation expense dash office building. And we credit accumulated depreciation dash office building. Ano naman yung kwento niya? Okay? So ang sabi nung simula, we have here the office building. Binago nga pala natin yung date. May 1, 6675. 6675. That is on May 1. Okay? Ano ang life ng building? Okay? Ang sabi dito, ang life ng building nung simula is 55 years. Oh, therefore 55 years yan. It will be divided to 55 years. Okay? So divided by 55 years. So, para makuha yung annual depreciation. Okay? So anong nangyari? 6675. Okay? Divided by 55 years, that is our annual depreciation, 121,363.63. Ayan. So sana tama tayo. 6675. Okay. Pinapatama natin sa yung 2 points. So 6675 divided by 55 years. Yan yung kung annual. May nangyari pa ba dun sa ating office building after nung May 1? Okay. Ang sabi dito, sabi sa problem, okay. Ayan. Ang sabi sa problem, nasa na yung building ulit natin, hinahanap ulit natin. Ang sabi sa problem, ang alam ko, nagkaroon ulit tayo ng capitalization. Ito yun, nung May 31, 185,000. Anong nangyari nung May 31? Okay, July 31. Anong July 31? July 31. Nato lang naman pala sa first page. Okay, they reinforce the building and extend the life for 10 years. Ang ibig ko sabihin, okay, so this 6675 divided by 55 is for 1 year. Pero hindi yan yung magiging depreciation niya muna. Okay, but rather, ang gagawin natin, hanggang dun muna tayo sa July 31. So it will be multiplied to 6/12. Kasi July 31 is 7. 7/12. Kasi hanggang July, di ba? July 31. 7/12. So 121, okay, ulitin na natin. 6675 divided by 55, okay, for 1 year, it will divided by 12, okay? So, monthly times 7, that will be the depreciation, 7795.44, okay, or 45. That is depreciation up to July 31. Okay, ngayon, anong nangyari? Noong July 31, ang nangyari nga, nag-extend pa ng life. Okay? By how long? By 10 years. Nadagdagan pa daw ng 10 years. So, hindi na siya 55 years, but rather it will become 65 years. So, anong gagawin natin? Okay? So, basically, alamin natin ngayon yung remaining costs. Okay? Yung 6675, ayan, na nag-depreciate ng 70,795.45 nung July 31, okay? Ang natitira na lang value ay 6604,204.60. Ayan. Ha? Okay, siguro ay naging 0.4 lang. Ulit. 6675,000 minus 70795.45. Ang natitira na lang value ay, tama nga, naputol nga, 6,604,204.60. 40 na lang to. Okay? Tapos, ang sabi, nagkaroon ng reinforcement amounting to 185,000. So, that's why we will add, okay, 185,000. Ayan na. So ito na yung bagong remaining cost ng machine. So plus 185,000. So we will get 6,789,204.60. And now this will be divided to the remaining life. Okay? Na ang remaining life, di ba dati 55 years, nadagdagan nga daw ng 10 years. So that is 65 years times 12. Okay? 780 months. O, 780 months. Pero that extension happens after 7 months. Kasi July nga, di ba? So therefore minus 7. Okay? So ang remaining life nung building in terms of months is 773 months. And then kukunin natin yung 5 months niyan. Okay? So that's why the remaining cost will be multiplied to 5/773. Okay, gagawin na lang po natin. So 6,789,204.6 divided by 773, okay, times 5 months is equal to 43,000, okay, 914.65. Ayan. So dalawa yung ating depreciation. Okay? So ang total ng dalawa, i-add mo yung luma, 70,795.40 na lang. Okay? So the amount is 114,710. Yan na lang, 114710. Okay, that will be our entry. Ulitin po natin yung theory kasi nagsasolve lang ako dire-diretso. Gusto ko kasi nag-i-explain eh. O, sir, ba't ang gulo naman ng computation mo talaga? Okay, marami kasing way kung paano mag-solve ng depreciation. Una, ang sabi dito, meron kang machine, building, 6,675,000. Okay, na-acquire siya nung January 1. Nung January 1, bakit ito yung may nakalagay na July, na May? Ano yung May 1 na yun? Okay, ano yung May 1 na yun? Okay. So ano yung May 1 na yun? Atin lang pong okay. Kung kailan natapos, sorry. So kung kailan siya natapos. So, baka mamaya mali pa rin nga yung sagot ko eh. Okay, so di ba nga nagkaroon ka ng building na natapos nung May 1, 6,675,000. Tapos 55 years. So divide sa 55 years, so therefore this is the annual. Since siya ay mali nga ito since siya ay May 1, okay? Uulitin ulit natin. Pasensya na talagang ganun kapag ka live ulitin natin. Ito nga pala natapos nga pala siya ay May. Okay, ulitin natin po yung ating machine, building. Meron naman tayong data. So nung May 1, nagsimula siya 6,675,000 for 55 years. I-convert ko na rin pati 4 years para mas simple. 55 years is how many months? 660. Nung una, ganyan kahaba yung buhay niya. Natapos siya ay May, pero nagkaroon ka ng reinforcement nung July 31. Ang approach na ginagamit ko is yung every time there is a changes in the value, we will also parang separate the computation on the date of change. So therefore, ang una kong depreciation is mula May 1 hanggang July 31. May, June, July, 3 months. So therefore, that is only 3 months. Mali ako dun 7 kasi yun nga pala ay katatapos lang nung May 1. Buti lang napansin ko yun. Okay, so ulitin natin. 6,650,000. Okay? For 55 years, divided by 660, that is the monthly depreciation. Since nagkaroon ng reinforcement noong July, May, June, July, 3 months lang ang ating depreciation muna. So times 3. So that is 30,341. Okay, rounded na pati. And then nung July 31, okay, aalamin natin yung kanyang balanse. Yung dating 6,675,000, nag-depreciate nung hanggang July 31 ng 30,341. Ang kanyang remaining balance ay 6,644,659. Tapos nagkaroon nga ng reinforcement na 185,000. So ang total na niyan ngayon, okay, yung remaining carrying amount, remaining cost, 6,829,659, okay, ay i-depreciate natin ngayon ng hindi na 55 years, but rather 65 years kasi nga nag-increase ng 10 years. So 55 plus 10 is 65 years times 12. Okay, that is 780 months. Pero, di ba lumipas na yung panahon 3 months, nung May nga nagsimula, May, June, July, 3 months. So therefore minus 3. Ang remaining months na lang ay 777. Pagkatapos, yung remaining cost will be depreciated mula July 31 hanggang December 31. That is how many months? 5 months. Okay? So, yun. Therefore, the value 6829659 will be divided to 777 and then will multiply to 5. So the answer is equal to 43,949 na lang, rounded. Okay, so dalawa ang ating depreciation. Again, anong approach na ginagawa ko? I assume kasi na nagbago lang yung useful life nung moment nagkaroon ng reinforcement. So again, 6675 yung original cost divided by the number of years, 55 years. And then yung months na nagamit mo bago magkaroon ng reinforcement, which is 3 months. So this is the depreciation up to July 31. And then dinetermine natin yung remaining carrying amount, 6644659 plus the reinforcement to determine this new carrying amount. And then will be divided by to new useful life kasi nag-extend ng 10 years. Okay? 65 years times 10 minus 3 months is 777 months. And then kikwentahin mo ilang buwan yung lumipas mula nung July hanggang December, that is 5 months. So ito na yung depreciation mo. Therefore, dalawa ang depreciation mo. We can now entry on December 31, debit depreciation. Okay? Expense dash office building and credit accumulated depreciation dash office building, okay, amounting to the total of the two 30,341 plus 43,949. So we will get 74,290. 74,290. Okay? Meron pa ba tayong isang equipment? Yes, meron pa. Yung vehicle, magdi-depreciate din yan. Okay? So therefore, on December 31, we are going to debit depreciation expense. Okay? For vehicle. And we are going to credit accumulated depreciation dash vehicle. For how much? Okay? Ano bang method? Ang sabi dito sa problem, I believe, hindi siya straight line, yan naalala ko. Kaya ang sabi dito, on March 1, okay, the company acquired a vehicle and it will be using double declining balance method. Ang problema, nagbigay na naman siya ng method pero kulang siya ng information ulit. Kailangan ulit ang useful life dito. So therefore, we will assume. Okay, we assume 5 years na lang. So therefore, sulat natin dito, the life is also 5 years. So, paano natin gagawin yun? Okay? Kapag a double declining balance method, we have to compute for the straight line rate. The straight line rate is 1 divided by 5 years. The 100% divided by 5 years. So 1 divided by 5, we will get 2. Okay? Or 20%. At dahil double declining, it will be multiplied to 2. So times 2. So we will get what? 40% rate. Oh, yan na. Kapag double declining, ganun lang yan. At kung ano yung rate, it will be multiplied to the carrying amount. Okay? Wala tayong pakialam sa residual value kapag accelerated balance method such as double declining. So therefore, the solution is simple. 992,000 will be multiplied to 40% to get the annual depreciation. But then we will consider na March 1 siya nagsisimulang mag-depreciate. Therefore, we will multiply again to 10 over 12. That is the depreciation for the vehicle. 992,000 times 40% to get the annual depreciation, multiply by 10, divided by 12. So we will get the depreciation of 330,667. Okay, so I believe that those are the entry for depreciation. O isa na lang. What will be our adjusting entries pa? Meron pa ba? Meron pa bang i-adjust? Meron pa ba? I believe meron pa. Okay, meron pa kasi dito. Yan o, naka-stapler na, hindi na sila nawawala. Okay? Kasi kanina may mga nilalaktawan ako, isa-isahin natin yan. Dapat nagbabrowse kayo, ano pa bang ina-adjust dyan? O, diba? Wala namang ina-adjust sa inventory since perpetual tayo. So dito tayo sa notes receivable. Okay? Yung notes receivable natin will have an interest income at the end of the period. So therefore, there will be a debit. Okay, cash sana kung nabayaran. Pero hindi magkakaroon tayo ng debit na interest receivable. We debit interest receivable, yung accrual, and we credit interest, okay, interest income. Okay? Paano kwentahin yun? Ayan, balikan natin yung problem. Okay? Ano ba ang nangyari dito nung March 31? Ito yung sinabi kong lalaktawan ko kanina. Ayan. So, March 31. So, nasaan siya? Nasa second page. Oh, March 31. Okay? Meron kang 10-year. Sorry, dito para makita ng ating mga manonood. Okay, meron tayong 10-year note. Okay, di ba may 10-year note tayo? Ayan po yun, oh. Meron tayong 10-year note. Therefore, okay, so that is the face amount of 5,570,000. So, sulat natin dito. May computation din yan, eh. Interest income will be compared to interest received. Kasi di ba may amortization din tayo dyan. Bakit meron tayong amortization tayo dyan? Bakit may amortization? Eh kasi, di ba, 10% ang nominal rate, 14% ang effective rate. Every time na magkaiba yung dalawa, laging may amortization. The interest received is based on, okay, the face amount of the note. O, 5,570,000 multiplied to 10%. Okay, 10% kasi, oh. Okay? And then, that is annual. Divided by 12. Okay? Dahil March, therefore 3 months yung lumipas. So, times 9. Therefore, the interest received is 417,750. Rounded na. Okay? 417,750. What is our interest income? Our interest income will be based on the market price of 5,052,881. Okay? Will be multiplied to 14% times 14%. O yan na. And then divided by 12. Okay? Times 9. 9 kasi nga, March to December. Times 9. So we will get 530,552. Okay? 0.50. And the difference will be the amortization. Okay? Recap ko lang kung tama ang sagot ko, ano. So 5,570,000 times 0.10. Okay? Divided by 12 times 9. Okay? So ito ang ating interest received. Well, yung interest income, sigurado naman tayo doon. So 530,000, 552.50 minus 417,750 will be the amortization, 112,802.50. Okay, what will be our entry for this amortization for the notes receivable? Okay? So the interest received is 417,750. 417,750. Yan po yung entry dyan. 417,750. Dapat sana talaga cash yan, eh, kasi interest received. Kaso nga lang, hindi pa naman March 31, kaya therefore for this time, accrual muna, interest receivable. And then, ang interest income mo talaga, 530,000, 552.50. That's why may amortization ka pa. So therefore, another entry, credit interest income. Okay, amounting to 112,802.50. And then may isa ka pang debit, unearned. Okay, interest income. Para saan naman yung unearned interest income? Hindi ba't meron ka dito nung simula na unearned interest income? Ito, oh, hindi pala kita. Meron kang unearned interest income nung simula. It will be realized now. Okay, with the same amount, 112,802.50. Okay, that ends the adjusting entry for this notes receivable. Meron pa ba tayong adjusting entry? Okay, wala na dito kasi puro receivable. Hindi naman yan ina-adjust. Okay, mali nga pala ang buklat natin. Hindi po tayo, pabalik. Okay, so yan. Trading securities, I believe, tinapos ko na to kanina. No? Diba lahat ng interest niya? Office building, okay na rin. Loans payable, I believe, ito naman yung sa nabayaran na rin to. Okay, so wala na rin dyan. Tapos, interest, loans, AR sign, wala pa rin. Okay, I believe iisa na. Loans receivable. Ito yung sinasabi ko, loans receivable. Okay, kasi meron ulit tayong paglipas ng panahon. So basically, the computation is the same. Unahin na muna natin yung computation, So we will compare the interest income, okay, with the interest received para malaman yung ating amortization. To get the amortization. Dapat sana gagawa ka ng amortization, pero dahil isang taon pa, pwede naman na ganito lang, okay, na diretso na. Na isang taon lang kasi, na simpleng computation lang, I mean. Doon muna tayo sa ating interest received. Okay, supposedly received. Okay, ang date ay November 30. Ayan. So ang sabi, ang stated rate ay 14%. So ang face amount ay 1,100,000 times 14%. That is the interest annual. Since tayo ay November 30 pa lang, so therefore, isang buwan lang, so divided by 12. Okay, the interest received is 12,833.33. Okay? While our interest income will be based on the fair value. Okay? The fair value o market value, sabi dito, ay 1,027,118. And the effective rate, sabi dito, dun sa solve natin kanina, ay, okay, ang effective rate ay 14 plus 3, di ba? 17% yung ginamit natin. So times 0.17, that is annual. Since iisang buwan pa, kasi November naman nangyari to, November 30. So divided by 12. So our interest income actually is, so tanggalin, 14,550.84. Therefore, our amortization is minus 12,833.33 is 717.51. Okay? At entryhan na natin. What will be our entry? We are going to debit interest receivable. Okay? For 12,833.33 and credit interest income. Okay? For the same amount, 12,833.33. And then, magkakaroon nga tayo ng amortization. Di ba kasi nga, dun sa ating loans receivable, meron din tayong credit na unearned interest income. Sa dulo ng taon, yan po ay ating ina-amortize. So, we debit unearned interest income and credit interest income amounting to 1,717.51. 1,717.51. Okay, meron pa ba tayong nakakalimutan sa lahat ng ito? Okay, so loans receivable, ayos na rin to. And then, puro adjustment na. Dito na lang ang kulang dun sa ating stapler, di ba? Okay, so huling pag-check, baka mamaya may problema pa tayo. Wala pong problema sa mga to, na-adjust na petty cash fund, pati foreign bank, machinery, okay na din, inventory, hindi ina-adjust. Okay, office building, vehicle, wala na ang problema dyan. Notes receivable, kanina nagawa na natin. Okay, so factoring, natapos na naman siya. Inventory, ayan. Okay, trading securities, okay na yan. Office building, machinery, loans payable. Loans payable ba? Loans payable, October 1. Okay, loans payable, October 1. Loan, nag-loan daw siya. Nabayaran na to kanina. Ito na yung sinasabi ko kanina. Okay, loans payable ay bayad na. Okay, kasi nabayaran na siya dito, ano. Then, AR assign, okay na rin yan. Okay, I believe, ayan na, inabot tayo ng how long? 1 hour and 52 minutes just to get these 2 points. Sana deserve natin to. Okay, sana wala po tayo naging mali. Okay, sana na-accept natin yung challenge. Sana may natutunan din kayo, no? We do it as academic as possible. Mas mabilis sana kung hindi ako nag-i-explain, pero ginagawa natin, syempre, we add on some theory. At saka sana, kayo mga accountants na nanonood, sana huwag kayong matakot na magsagot ng mga ganitong klase ng problem. Okay? Kasi dito nyo na matitest kung talagang alam nyo na ba talaga yung inyong subject. Okay? As you try to read the problem, okay, may idea ko. Parang ganun na yung rule. So kaya ko itong sagutan. Kaya mas maganda makita nyo rin na doable naman talaga siya kung talagang medyo malalim na yung pagkakaalam mo dun sa subject, dun sa intermediate accounting, di ba? Na subject mo. Okay, so sana na-accept ni Sir Win yung challenge. At ang sabi niya nga na kung kayo na nahirapan, kung hindi kayo nadalian, ganun talaga kasi nga lagi natin binabanggit, di ba? Okay, if it's easy, it's not accountancy. You just simply compute, then after that, complain, but still you have to continue. Katulad ng ginawa natin, kasi talagang pinilit natin tapusin kasi kahit medyo sobrang tagal na. So yun lamang at maraming salamat.